Hello, my name is Olivia Yellin and I'm a senior at East Hampton High School here with the LTV Community Intern Project. Today I will be interviewing Kathee Burke-Gonzalez, who is running for Town Supervisor. Kathee has been an active member of our community outside of serving in the town board since 2013. She was also on the Spring School Board for 9 years, 2 of her last years as president. Kathee, thank you for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Olivia. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to come and talk to you about the race and the town board and the issues facing our community.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add to your career that I may have left out in this intro?
Well, the only thing, prior to my service to the community, I was in advertising for 30 years. So I worked in New York for half of that and then out here on the East End. So those, that experience has also helped me, I hope to be a better town board member.
Awesome. So the first question I have is, what are the responsibilities of a town supervisor, and why does your previous experience make you a good candidate for this position?
That's a great question. So, because there's a lot of folks out there that really don't understand how the town board functions in the
Right,
community. So there are 5 members of the town board. We meet, we have 3 work sessions a month and 2 town board meetings. And the role of the supervisor is to be the chief administrator and fiscal officer, right? So when we have those meetings, the supervisor chairs the meetings, and they also create the agendas for the work sessions. We're also the chief fiscal officer in the sense that we're responsible for all the money that comes into town from taxes and whatnot, and all the money that gets dispersed. We're also, God forbid there's an emergency and we have to go into an incident command structure. The supervisor is at the top of that structure, and we're also the chief administrator in the sense that the town attorneys, the budget officers, the chief of police, and all the department heads report into to the supervisor's office. We are also legislators, but so are my other four colleagues on the board. We all have an equal vote when it comes to any matter that comes before the board.
Wow, okay.
And then you wanted to know, I'm sorry, you wanted to know how my experience, plays into that. So we have, having been on the school board, you mentioned that I was the chair for 2 years. So I'm have the experience of facilitating open and inclusive meetings and setting agendas for meetings. I've also had a great deal of budget experience in my advertising career, but also as a school board member, because we were responsible for the budget. And really the school budget is the only budget that the community actually gets to vote on. So I've had a lot of, project management experience, leadership experience in, my 40-year career.
Okay. As recently as October 5th, the East Hampton town budget is tentatively set at approximately $95 million, according to the East Hampton Star. How do you plan on managing that large gross of a budget?
So it takes a team, right, to run a town. And we have a tremendous finance department and budget director that helps to do that. And, our budget is $95 million and it's about this thick. The way we do the budget, every department has its own budget. And then it gets broken down very granularly. So like salaries are in there, benefits like health insurance is in there, telephone, office expenses, office equipment, outside professional. I mean, it's very detailed. So we also have a purchasing department that keeps us all on the straight and narrow. So it's, it takes a village.
Yeah. So given the fact that this is such an onerous task, why have you chosen to go through the election process and work this job?
Okay, I've gotten that a lot. Like, why do you want this job? Well, first of all, I think of running for the town board or for supervisor. It's really like the longest job interview of your life, right? So it was in mid-January where I announced that I was looking to run for town supervisor. And here we are in mid-October and we still have, 2.5 weeks until election day. I want to lead our community because I feel like I have the skill set to do that. And I also feel that we need to lean in more to our department heads and our staff. They're experts in their fields. And I feel like I want to bring a collaborative approach to leadership. That's always how I've led groups. And I really have the best job in the world. I get, the town board, we get to make a difference in people's lives every day. whether that's seniors that come to the senior center for lunch, or somebody that wants to just have a quiet, peaceful day at the beach. You know, we in charge of the beaches and the lifeguards, or whether somebody wants to take a hike on our trails. You know, we have folks that make sure the trails stay open and accessible. So I just, you know, I love what I do.
Yeah. So a lot of people my age are more informed than prior generations thanks to new and upcoming technological advances. Politicians tend to overlook us. We are frustrated by the overpartisan outlook on politics and we want to see results. What do you feel works well in our community and how do you think you can get these results to improve things in our town?
So first, let me say, I never underestimate the youth in our community. I mentioned to you before we got started that I have two kids. My daughter Nina is 23 and my son Burke is 25. When Nina was in high school, there were two walkouts during her time frame there. One was for gun violence and one was for climate change, where the students came out and protested. Obviously, the school was, you know, open to it, and community members showed up to support the students. She also signed us up back in 2017 for the Women's March in DC, and then we went in 2018 to the Women's March in New York City, and then the March for Our Lives back in 2018 after Parkland. So we've also seen young people, your contemporaries, come to town board meetings and discuss the work that they're doing for water quality. The Environmental Awareness Group has been so involved with sustainable landscaping at town halls. So I just want to say that, you know, the youth in this community has our attention.
Thank
Okay.
you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
But what I, you know, as far as what works, I think that the job of a town board member is to gather the information and bring it to the community so that the community working together, we can make more informed decisions, right? And we have the most successful programs and projects that we've done has a very robust community engagement. And I think that that's something that I want to work on if I'm fortunate enough to be elected supervisor. I want to work with the community to set our priorities and make sure that our budget is in alignment with our priorities, because I've always said, and it comes back from my 9 years on the spring school board, that, you know, the budget is a reflection of the community's priorities. It's a reflection of what we value, right? So if you value, you know, good roads, you need to have money in your highway department. If you value supporting senior services, you need to make sure that the funding is there for the nutrition program, the transportation program, or the Wellness 60 Plus program that we have going. So I think that, you know, community participation, I'm hoping that we can actually increase that. I've noticed since COVID that our citizen committees aren't, we don't have as much participation as we had in the past. People, I think, are still reluctant to come to in-person meetings. They've gotten comfortable with Zoom, and while Zoom is a great tool, it's you don't get that interpersonal,
Yeah, exactly.
you don't get that energy. It's a flat screen. So I think that those are the kinds of things that I would want to work on if I'm, you know, fortunate enough to be elected.
And one of the things that I and many others are very passionate about is helping vulnerable members of our community to be able to sustain themselves, specifically with access to affordable housing. What do you believe is successful in the current housing initiative, and what do you hope to improve on and how?
Okay, well, affordable housing is like in the top three. I mean, it's hard to say which is 1, 2, and 3, but so a couple years back, Supervisor Van Scoyoc declared all hands on housing, and that has been a tremendous initiative. So the way the town government works now is that every council person has liaisons. So we're responsible for different departments. And for instance, for 10 years, I've been the liaison to human services. And we had a liaison to housing, and then we realized that if we really want to get, you know, more balls, you know, in the air, we needed to you know, break that up and give everybody a project. So, you know, Councilman Least has single family home project at 395 Panago. It's right next to where Cook Marin is and Jacques Frenet's wine store. That's going to be 16 single-family homes. And we're looking to do those to be all electric. We want them to take solar. We want them to have, sustainable landscaping, no permanent irrigation, because we need to reduce greenhouse gases and we need to lead by example as the town. So that is an exciting project for families. We also, I'm the liaison to a project on Route 114 in Wainscott. We're looking to build 50 affordable apartments. And we'd like to see that skew more towards folks that are making, I like to call it middle income, but I get corrected by my housing folks to say it's 130% AMI, which is, that's getting into the weeds. But we want to do 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments there because, and that would give people the flexibility that, a couple gets married, they're in a 1 bedroom, they have a baby, they can, move into a 2 bedroom, they decide to have a second child, they could, move into a 3 bedroom. There's flexibility there because when you provide affordable housing for members of our community, you're giving them financial security and stability and a brighter future here. So it's really important. When we look, so for example, when we're looking at available properties in town, sometimes we get approached by real estate brokers that'll go to our land acquisition and management department and say, look, there's 2 acres over here on name a street, and they'll come to us and we'll say, okay, is that a good candidate for CPF, for the Community Preservation Fund, whether we want to use that for open space or recreation or shoreline protection, or is that a better fit for affordable housing? And so we look at that. We've also, in the town code, we've only ever we have half acre zoning here, so you can build a house on a half acre. But Suffolk County allows you to build a house on a 1/4 acre. So we changed the code. So in areas where we want to put affordable housing overlay districts, we have the ability now to put 4 homes per acre. And that's what we did for the project at 395
awesome.
Panago. We've also increased the number in the code of how many ADUs, accessible dwelling units. So you could put, a 600 square foot cottage on your property if you're, fit within the guidelines. We doubled the number that can happen. We've also expanded if you want to have an apartment in your home, it could be, before you could only have it up to 600 square feet. So you could actually have more room in your basement, but if you were doing a basement apartment, but you could have had maybe an 800 square foot apartment and had, a 2 bedroom, you were limited before. So we took that prohibition out. So we're trying to find ways that we can, create more affordable housing units for our, local families here.
Yeah, that's great. And then you also mentioned solar panels on these units, so that kind of segues me into my next question.
Sure.
What are the major climate determinants within our community regarding climate change that you hope to help with, and how?
So interesting. So back, I'm trying to remember what year it was. I think it was 2019. South Fork Wind wanted to come up and do off of Montauk the wind turbines, and the line would be buried under Beach Lane in Wainscott. And we got pushback from the community that they didn't want the line buried there. They wanted it somewhere else. And I realized that I needed to educate myself. So I went down to Atlanta and trained with the Climate Reality Project, which is led by former Vice President Al Gore. And I had, it was like a 3-day intensive on climate change. And I realized all of a sudden it all came to be that, it wasn't just our vulnerable coasts that were being affected by climate change, right? We had a dust storm in Amagansett behind, where the municipal parking is. And that was because we had so much rain, like September, October, that the farmer was delayed in getting the tractor because the tractor wouldn't go through the mud to get the potatoes out of the field. So the potatoes came out late, then the cover crop got planted, but it never got to germinate. and the birds came and were eating the seed, and then all of a sudden we had these winds that came through, and it was, blowing dust throughout Amagansett. Then you think about the southern pine beetle, right? They're not called the northern pine beetle or the mid-Atlantic pine beetle, right? They're called the southern,
invasive, right?
right? And they're here because we have warmer winters, and that they thrive here, and it has devastated our landscape. And then after Superstorm Sandy, we had flooding of a portion of Girard Drive. We had to raise the infrastructure. So it's like we're battling climate change on so many fronts. And fortunately, we have a coastal assistant resiliency plan. We call it CARP. We've adopted it into the comprehensive plan, and it spells out strategies for how we're going to mitigate climate change. The other thing is we have to reduce greenhouse gases. And we do that. We've got a fleet policy now for the town of East Hampton where we're trying to, we're purchasing electric vehicles. We're putting in electrical, EV charging stations. We're the new senior center. We just had a presentation on Tuesday. We're in design development, and that's going to be an all-electric building. It's going to have solar canopies. It's going to have EV charging stations, and it's going to be built with sustainable materials. So, and what happened was a couple years back, we declared a climate emergency and said that every decision that we make has to be made through the lens of mitigating and reducing greenhouse gases.
Okay, so this is kind of a different question, but
Sure.
I feel like it's really important to ask all of the people running this new election. How have you overcome biases and weaknesses throughout your experience?
Okay. So at a young age, my mother sat me down and told me it's a man's world. Not to say that you shouldn't, and you just have to work harder. And that's in my 40-year career. That's what I found I've had to do, right? So I study harder. I prepare more. When folks take pictures or photographers take pictures from the newspaper of the dais, my head's always down. That's because I'm taking copious notes, because that's how I learn and process, is by writing it down, because then I integrate the information. But I think that that's, what I've had to overcome. That I think even, running for supervisor, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, I'll only be the fourth woman in the history of the town to be the supervisor. We had Judith Hope, we had Mary Fallon, and we had Kathee Lester. Now, granted, the town is 375 years old, but we've only had the right to vote for 100 years. But we've only
But even so, that's
yeah.
That's too. I don't know.
No.
Anyways, and finally, why should people vote for you?
So I think my 19 years of public service have been firmly rooted in my core values, and that's family, hard work, compassion for one another, and respect for our natural environment. I think that I have the management skills and the people skills to be able to be our next supervisor. I'm a firm believer, I think I mentioned, in collaborative leadership. I look to build consensus. I listen to people. I've got the budget experience. I think that I have, I'd like to think that I have the support of town staff. And I'm ready to lead.
Yes, well, this was really great talking to you, and I wish you the best in the future.
Thank you, Olivia. It was great to be here today. And it's a tremendous program. I'm actually the liaison to LTV. And, big shout out to LTV, because we're really blessed to have them as a partner in our community.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, and good luck with your senior year.